Hello, everyone. This is Sydney from TechServe Alliance. Welcome to today's webinar, Differentiate to Attract, Hire, and Retain the Best Internal Team. There will be a question and answer session following the presentation, so please write any questions you want answered in the Q&A box, which can be found at the bottom of the screen. We are also recording today's presentation, which will be available on the TechServe Alliance website and will be distributed in follow-up emails. Now, I'd like to introduce you to Barb Bruno, President of Good as Gold Training.
Thanks so much, Cindy, and welcome everybody. I'm glad that we have such a large group here today. And we decided to do this program because I moderated a panel at the TechServe Alliance Owner Summit this past fall. And there was so much interest into where do you find your internal team? And you would think that this is what we do for a living. We find people jobs, we're always identifying talent. Yet when it comes for our own offices, we're faced with the same things our clients are. Like, where do you go? How do you differentiate yourself to not only hire somebody, but then how do you retain them? If you've got top producers on that, they're being recruited away big time by corporations, by other staffing firms. And so what do you do? How do you attract, hire, and retain the best talent? And I'm not saying anything that you don't already know. Finding the best talent to work in your office is more challenging than ever. And so again, how do you find the recruiters and account executives who are going to fill more business written and help you grow your company and profits? Because right now the marketplace is incredible. Yes, it's hard to find talent, but this is when you should be making the most money. I always tell recruiters that complain to me during training, Barb, it's so hard to find talent. And I go, isn't it wonderful? You should get down on your knees every night and thank God. Because if it was easy to find people, no one would need your services, and who you hire as an owner manager, who you hire internally has a tremendous impact on the level of success that you achieve. And I don't believe one person can make your organization or make your company, but I believe one bad hire can break it. If you hire someone who doesn't fit in with your company culture, who doesn't have the same core values as you do, who just doesn't fit in with your current team, it can really cause a lot of internal chaos and it can really ruin morale. So every person you hire is either going to be that asset that's going to add to your team and really help you grow and prosper, or they could cause big problems. And so that's why I think it's extremely important that you decide up front, who does your team need? Who are you going after? And you got to know who you are. You've got to know your core values, and you got to know that you're aligning with the people that are going to work for you. Individuals who are considering our profession often think all contract staffing firms are alike. Now, you and I know that all contract staffing firms are not created equal. It's not even close to be created equal. So how do you set yourself apart? What is most important, to your internal employees, and how do you retain your tenured staff? And so, during this training, we're going to talk about things. What are the pros and cons of hiring no experience versus hiring somebody with experience? Secondly, where and how do you recruit your internal employees? And please don't run an ad. We tell our clients, don't run ads, don't put job board ads, don't advertise. We're going to get people that are passive, that are working, that are the best hires. And yet too often when we're looking to fill a position in our own company, we run an ad, which limits you to 15% of the workforce. I think most of you know that I do courses for LinkedIn Learning. I've done 15 courses on recruiting and different topics for them. And so I have access to LinkedIn's big data. And they've proven that companies are spending $2.5 billion on job board ads. That's what they spent in 2021, $2.5 billion with a B. And LinkedIn proved that all those job board ads, that $2.5 billion that they spent, only attracts 15% of the workforce. The other 85% are out there working, doing their job, and they're not in an active job search. That's who you want to hire. Now, also, how do you differentiate? Because when people refer to us as you people call me all the time, too many people don't see a difference between you and your competitors. The fact that you belong to TechServe Alliance is a huge differentiator. I hope you have TechServe Alliance everywhere. And every time TechServe's new publications that they're sending us, I'm reading them and I read bullet points. I'm no different than most owners. I read the top sentence and I read bullet points. I am reading those because the information that TechServe is sending us is extremely valuable, and you should share it with your clients. One of the differentiators is you belong to the professional association that represents IT and engineering contract and direct hire. That's one differentiator, but I'm going to give you more tips. And then how does certification enhance training, engagement, and retention? Because most of the people you place are certified, right? Clients tell you exactly what certifications they want. So how can certification benefit you and your company and everybody that works for you? Now, first of all, let's address the pros and cons of hiring experienced versus somebody with no experience. So let's go the pros of experience. If you hire someone experienced, they can hit the ground running. They need less training. They understand the good, the bad, and the ugly of this career. They know this is a sales job, and they know they're going to be rejected a lot. They know that there's a lot of disappointment. So there's no surprises when you hire experience. They know the technical terminology, and they've got expertise in the kinds of positions that you place. Because if you're hiring experience, you're probably looking for someone that's also done your niche. They've got a proven track record of success. As a result, they can usually produce revenue faster. So they get up and running faster. They hit the ground running, okay? And they've got established ratios and stats. And by the way, if you're hiring experienced and someone doesn't know their numbers, run. Because good, solid, experienced recruiters know their stats, they know their ratios, they know their numbers. Now, let's talk about the cons of hiring experience. You're going to pay more because individuals that have experience in IT and engineering contract, they know their worth. They know that there's a lack of talent. They deal with it every day. And so they're going to request more money than a newer person. They often bring baggage. So many people start in our profession and they didn't go through a formal training program. They might have been trained for a week or so, and then all of a sudden they're just put on the job and they watch the people around them and they pick up their bad habits as well as their good habits, but they can bring baggage, or they can tell you that that's not the way that I'm used to doing that. If they bring a book of business, they're going to do that to your firm in the future. I want you to think about that for a moment. If they say, I can bring clients with me, I can bring candidates with me, I know that's very attractive, but you're hiring a thief. They're stealing business from their current company. And if once a thief, always a thief. If they're going to steal business from their current client and bring it to you in the future, I don't care if you have them sign a non-compete or not, they're going to do the same thing to you. They may not follow your processes and systems and procedures because they're not used to following them. They're used to doing it the way that their last company did it. And just a tip from me to you, your offices should be set up like a franchise. That's why many of you have problems integrating a new hire, because you don't have processes. Everybody's shooting from the hip. They're doing it their own way. There's a process for recruiting. There's a process for sales. There's a follow-up process. There's a nurturing process. There's a referral process. There's a sourcing process. Make sure that you're looking, how you're having people do things. And if somebody does get sick or can't show up to work, anybody should be able to sit at their desk and work their desk. And I have owners say, oh my God, people get sick and no one knows where anything is. So make this the year that you systematize your organization, where you have processes in place. Experience cons are also included. You might hire someone who is just burnt out. They've quit and stayed at their current job. They're not really producing at their current job, so they feel changing a company is the answer for them, but sometimes they're burnt out. They've quit and stayed, and they're going to come to your company and they're not going to be able to produce. So you've got to make sure you know that this is someone that is still passionate. We can't just like what we do. We have to be passionate because of all the disappointments, because of the challenges we're facing right now. They may have clients and candidates that are already represented by your current team. And so that can cause some problems. They might say, well, I'm doing more business with that client than you're doing. I want that client. Well, not the way it works. They can be more demanding and less flexible. So I know that we have a tendency of only looking at the left column. Gee, they'll hit the ground running. I don't have to train them. They know the terminology. They're going to produce faster. But I want you to consider all the cons before you decide that you're only going to hire experienced recruiters. Now let's talk about no experience, because there's pros and cons to that too. The pros of hiring no experience is they're less expensive. You've got no bad habits to break because they haven't been doing this. You can train them on your processes, your systems, the basics, how you want things done. They're often less demanding because they're learning a new profession, and they must attain minimum standards of performance. You bring them up right. You give them minimum standards of performance. You never erase goals. You share your performance objectives with them. They know how they're going to be evaluated. Now, there's some cons to hiring someone with no experience. the wrap-up time before they generate revenue. I would suggest very strongly that most of the people you hire as recruiters right now, because you probably got more business than you know what to do with, and you're having trouble filling the business. And the way to get a new hire up and productive fast is to give them hot contracts or hot job orders to work. You hire a new salesperson, they want to write their own business, and sometimes they're not writing the best business. And so you can get people up and productive quicker. And maybe if they eventually want to get into sales, you can do that. But new hires with no experience, if you start them on the recruiting side of our process, they'll make money for you quicker. They don't have the technical knowledge usually. They may not understand a job or what it takes to succeed. And by the way, if you are placing .NET developers, you don't want to hire a .NET developer as a recruiter, because they're not a salesperson. Recruiting is sales. They might have they have no established ratios or stats unless they've been selling something else. And hopefully, if you're hiring people with no experience, you're still hiring salespeople that have a track record of success, and they should know their numbers. If you're interviewing a salesperson and they don't know their numbers, that's a red flag. I came from real estate, and I knew exactly how many homes I had to show before I closed somebody on a home. I knew exactly how much prospecting I had to do before I got a good, solid person to list their home or buy their home for me. Anybody that's selling anything should know their numbers. The other con about hiring somebody with no experience, your current team is not going to trust them because they have no experience. And so they might screen tougher. You've got to have a way to integrate your new hires with your current team, so your current team starts trusting them. And again, if the current team is trying to fill business and they're providing candidates, that's one of the best ways for them to establish rapport and trust and credibility with your current team. Now, so what choice is best for you? Too often, again, hiring experience seems to be more lucrative. But if someone brings their book of business to you, they've stolen from another owner, and they're going to do the same to you in the future. And I know so many people are doing this. And I just talked to an owner last week that was very upset that he hired someone last year that not only bought a book of business, but brought two of their coworkers with them. And so they literally wiped out another small boutique firm because they hired the top producer. They didn't have non-competes. And so he brought two of his coworkers with him. Well, guess what? In early January, this owner called me, and this same person now opened their own business and took those two people with them. So I'm just saying, people are creatures of habit. Judge people by what they do, not what they say. You're going to pay higher compensation, and you need to validate their income, because, if somebody tells you that I produced this amount, and then you ask them their income, you got to justify that that's the income they make. And did the income match what they said they produced? Because sometimes they give you these tremendous production numbers, and then when you look at what they earn, you're thinking, wow, this owner was cheap. They didn't pay them anything. Or were they lying about the production numbers? If you have no training process, often hiring experience is a better solution, because if you don't have a way to train them, you can't just put people on a job and expect them to pick it up by osmosis, because there's too much going on right now, and your current team doesn't have time to mentor because they're so busy. They're so stressed out. If you do have your business set up like a franchise with structured, comprehensive training processes, systems, minimum standards of performance, you can train an overachiever who wants to sell quickly, and you're not going to break any bad habits. I do not believe that you make somebody a top producer. I don't believe you can make somebody a top producer. I believe you hire people that are top producers. Now, I'm not saying a top producer in the staffing and recruiting profession, but you can't hire a duck and expect them to be an eagle. They might be a very happy duck. And almost 90% of the people in our profession are considered average. They never reach that peak performance top producer status because, quite frankly, they don't want to pay the price, and they can make extremely good money being average in our profession, can't they? Okay, it is not possible to motivate an employee to become a high achiever if they don't want to pay the price. I was on a call yesterday. I'm doing some internal training for a team, and it was interesting because one of the recruiters said to me, "Well, Barb, but I don't want to work after 5 o'clock," because I was saying, when you're recruiting, what you want to do is say, what do you see as your next career move, and when is it best for us to talk? Because most people, especially in IT, can't talk on the job. Get their cell phone number, call them at night. You've got to do that when you're talking to people that are working. And this girl, quite frankly, told me, she said, I told my employer that when I was hired, I will not work after 5. I believe in work-life balance, and I am not going to work after 5 o'clock. And I said, that's okay. You can do that. You can not work after 5 o'clock, but you'll always be average. So as long as you're happy with average, then you don't have to work after 5 o'clock. But in our business, you've got candidates that can't talk on the job. Sometimes you've got to prep or debrief them on weekends and evenings. The great news is all you need is your telephone. And another thing that impacts your life, if you want great work-life balance, money has the biggest impact on your life next to good health. And if you're not going to work past 5, you're going to limit your income, which is going to limit the quality of that work-life balance. Would it be worth it to really establish yourself as a high achiever, make a few phone calls in the evening, but then have this wonderful life that you're enjoying when you are trying to balance work life? I'm not saying work every night, but anybody that you hire, if they say, I won't work after 5, every big biller that I coach, and I coach a lot of them, they all make calls before work and after work. I call it the Power 13. They make a few calls in the morning, they make a few calls at night, they call over the weekend because they know that's when they can talk to people and it separates them aside. So when you're interviewing, you've got to make sure that there's something in a person's DNA. Whether you hire a full desk direct hire recruiter, a contract staffing recruiter, or an account executive, these are all sales positions. I have 11 grandchildren, and out of my 11 grandchildren, I have 5 peak performers and 6 that'll be average. I have 5 that since they've been young, if they've played sports, like my one grandson, he's a sophomore and he's playing varsity ball in both baseball and basketball. Just a great athlete and also a straight A student. He's been an overachiever since he's been a little kid. I can give you examples of why I think the 5 are overachievers, because no matter what they did, they're going to make it great. And you know who those people are. They talk a little bit faster. They're a little more excited, but they've got a track record that no matter what they do great. That's who you have to look for. And you've got to look for those high achievers who want to sell. You can't just go out there. And again, I don't care how good you are. I'm a trainer and I can't make somebody a top producer. I can't. And sometimes I don't want to hire a big biller. I want to hire someone who's going to just follow my processes and have very good production, but I'm not looking for that rock star. When I'm looking for the rock star, I absolutely know what the DNA is, and I'm going to go after that. But sometimes my team just needs somebody who's going to just crank out the numbers and stay on the phone and constantly bring talent in the door. You got to know who you need. So where and how do you recruit these people? So I told you who you need. You're not always going to hire. I think every organization has some eagles, some ducks, but you can't have people that are not making you money. Every desk in your office is either a profit or a loss center. And I don't know about you, but as an owner, I am not willing to construct an awning over anybody's desk above their desk that says nonprofit. So I want everyone that works for me to be profitable, especially now. And you notice on this slide, I didn't say where and how to advertise for your internal employees, did I? I didn't put advertise. Most top producers are too busy working their next contract or order to be conducting a job search if they're in our profession. And people that are also selling successfully for someone else, they're not answering want ads. They're not going to do that. You got to go out and recruit them. If they were contacted by you and presented an opportunity that represented their next career advancement, many of them would be interested in a conversation. And that's what we have to do. Don't pitch your opportunity. Suggest a conversation to see where they see themselves next. What do they envision as their next career move? Because if you pitch too early, potential hires will not respond because you sound like everyone else who is trying to hire for a staffing and a recruiting firm. You got to know what this person wants next. And if you have a top producer, if you're talking to a peak performer and they go, I'm looking to get into sales management, what you have to ask them is, are you willing to give up, and reduce your personal production if you're going into management? Like, do you realize that's going to happen? Because most big billers, most peak performers make lousy managers. They just do, because they're too selfish and self-centered. They're too money motivated. They take the job for the 5% override, but they have no intention of mentoring or coaching. They don't want the babysitting part of the job or the fireman part of the job. They want to produce. And so don't think that because you've got a high achiever working for you that they're going to make a good manager. And when you're talking to people about working for you, find out what really makes them tick. See the world through their eyes. See the world through their eyes. Because when you listen to somebody you're interviewing for your internal team, Don't agree or disagree with them. Put yourself in their shoes, see the world through their eyes, ask them, conduct a general interview, see what's most important to them. And only then are you going to determine, will this person fit in with my organization? Now, where do you recruit your internal employees? This was the big discussion when we were in Florida. This was the huge discussion. Everybody's like, you can't find them. There's no recruiters anywhere. Well, there's several backgrounds that I've seen that have worked extremely well. But it's important to hire somebody that has a history of success who wants to sell, period. Stop giving them these fancy titles. Well, you're going to be a recruiting specialist. This job is a sales job. And I don't care what titles you use. You can use all the titles you want, but you've got to find someone who's been successful in their past and who wants to sell. And now you're going to teach them the recruiting profession. If somebody has never sold in their life, they have to want to sell. They have to want their income to be primarily impacted by their performance. If they've not sold, have they done anything where they've been rewarded based on their performance? Ex-athletes are great recruiters, but they can't be an athlete who made the team but sat on the bench the whole time. You don't want that person. You want that person like my grandson who's playing. He's a starter and he's a sophomore. That's who you want to hire. You want to hire people that have that track record of success in anything. It doesn't have to be sports, but in their life. Individuals who have sales experience become profitable quicker than those that don't. So if you don't hire somebody with experience, but look at what they've done. If you hire a recent grad, I know a lot of you are looking at recent grads, then you've got to look at a recent grad that got good grades, but also did other things. Did they work through school? If they were in a sorority or fraternity, did they head up anything? If they headed up fundraising, if they held up events, if they're the social chairman, all they're doing is buying the liquor. But if they're in charge of fundraising, then they've had to go out and sell the benefit of donating and that type of thing. Those are the kinds of people you want. Now, I'm going to give you some specific backgrounds. Obviously, experienced recruiters. Now, corporate recruiters, people that are working in HR, now they don't call themselves recruiters anymore. They call themselves talent acquisition professionals. So if you're trying to recruit people out of companies to work for you, the title you want to go after is, most of them are now called talent acquisition professionals. Some are called recruiters, but most are called talent acquisition. But if you hire somebody doing that and you want them to do client development, realize they have no experience because their clients were there. They never had to go out and land a client. Corporate recruiters make great recruiters, but they've got a long learning curve when it comes to actually, client development because they've never done it. They didn't have to. Successful sales reps, especially tech sales. If you specialize in IT and you find somebody who's been doing technical sales, they're awesome. Don't be afraid to hire outside salespeople who are tired of being outside. When you tell an outside salesperson you can make more money than me and you don't have to be outside all the time, they're like, what? Ex-athletes who actually played. Enterprise rent-a-car salespeople. I know I'm giving you a specific company name, but I run into enterprise rent-a-car people at every convention I'm at. And I run into enterprise people when I'm doing sales conventions because they've got a different kind of sales job. I run into them at every staffing and recruiting profession event that I attend because enterprise just has a phenomenal sales training program. And the people that they go after, the recent grads they go after, have the profile I told you to go after for recent grads. But what happens with enterprise rental cars, they work a lot of hours. They're working evenings, weekends. And as you know, there's a shortage of rental cars. There's all kinds of craziness going on in this industry right now. And what's beautiful about it, if they want their own place, they have to relocate. And so if you can catch somebody a year and a half, 18 months at enterprise rent-a-car, interview them. I'm telling you, and a lot of them become big billers. A lot of them become high achievers because that's the profile that enterprise goes after. Many of my current team and past teams have come out of hospitality, sales or catering managers in hotels, because I'll teach them my niche. I'll teach them how to recruit, but hospitality has a tendency of hiring, people that have great communication skills, college degrees. They have great writing ability. They've got great speaking ability. The difference in hospitality and what you and I do, when you work in hospitality, you sell an event, but then you have to attend the event. And so they go into hospitality and catering because it looks so glamorous. I guess right now, COVID has really clobbered this industry. And so many really great hospitality people are looking for a different career. and they're not going to work near the hours. When they realize that after hours, they just have to be on a phone, they don't have to be at the property and, at the office, they're like thrilled because they're used to working 50 and 60 hours a week naturally, and weekends and holidays. So hospitality and catering managers it says manager, but they're still selling. Multi-unit retail managers, you can grab them up right now very easily. Someone who's a district manager for any of the big retail companies, whether it's the Gap or Express or any retail store. These district managers, it used to be a glorious job. They had a company car, they had 4 or 5 stores. Now, many of them have lost their car. They've got 15 stores. People don't show up. They're working in retail stores all over the place, trying to cover to keep the doors open. But think about this. They got the job, they got promoted, they started in sales, they got promoted to assistant manager, and now they're a multi-unit manager. So they're used to running their own business. They have bottom line accountability, just like our teams do. They make great recruiters. Anybody that comes out of a call center, and you might think, what? Call center people are used to being on the phone. And if you've got people that work for you that say, nobody will be on the phone, nobody will talk to me, it's because they're not making the right calls. Candidates and clients, if they don't see the benefit to them to talk to you, of course they're not going to talk to you. They're going to text and email. Now, I use texting, I use email, I use everything. I'm very technical, but every third contact with my candidates or clients is a phone call because I'm a phone person. People are always shocked. They'll call our company about training, and I'll call back, and they're like, "Is this Barb or Bruno really?" And I go, "Of course it is." And I teach people to conduct business on the phone. If I didn't do that, would you trust me? And they go, "Well, no." Call center people are used to picking up the phone, and they're used to getting people on the phone, and they're used to that. And so all you've got to do is teach them our profession. Ex-actors or actresses. And I know this sounds really crazy, but people that wanted to be an actor or an actress had to improv. They're great at improv, and they've done everything to pursue this dream. They've sold insurance, they've been bartenders, they've done all kinds of crazy things to pay the bills. And now they finally realize, okay, I'm not going to be discovered. They make great recruiters. Danny Cahill, who's another trainer. I mean, he comes out of the theatrical, career. But I've run into a lot of people that came out of theater that do very well in our profession. Any account executive who sold an intangible or a professional service, because that's what you and I do. The key here, now these are some, I'm just trying to give you some specific backgrounds to recruit from, but the key is it's got to be someone who's an overachiever who wants to sell and they want to earn a high income. If you hire someone that's never earned $50,000 a year, and you ask them what they want to earn and they say $50,000, that's not the person you want to hire. That's not enough. Like they've got to want to hire, they've got to want to earn 6 figures. They have to want to get a great house. They've got to want to send their kids to the best colleges, or maybe they want to start a family and buy a home or buy a car. You've got to find people that want a lot. Like I love when my recruiters go into debt. I had 3 of my team want to get a condo in downtown Chicago. These were girls in their mid-20s. And I said, do you have any idea what a condo in downtown Chicago costs? And they go, no. And I said, tomorrow I'm giving you the afternoon off. I want the 3 of you to go. Find out, what they cost, pick a building that you'd like to live in. What do you need as a down payment? Well, it was funny because 2 of them came back with the same building and the other girl picked something else. And I said, so this is what you're going to have to earn to get that down payment. I had the best year I ever had because then a couple other people that worked for me said, well, if these young girls are doing it, what am I doing in an apartment? And I'm in my early 30s. I had the best year I've ever had. And 4 of them bought a condo that year, because I didn't have to motivate them. You can't motivate someone to be more than what they want to become. And everybody you talk to has a financial thermostat. We all do. And unless they set up that financial thermostat, they're never going to become a high achiever for you because they're almost worried about it. Sometimes they're just as afraid of success as they are of failure. And again, I've done 4 conferences in the last 90 days. So I've been interacting with a lot of people, and I have another one in 2 weeks. And it's interesting because I still am having people come up and say, I don't want to produce more because then my owner is going to expect it. That's the wrong attitude. Now, let me give you some common denominators of high producing recruiters and account executives. Nobody has all of these traits, okay? But these are traits that you want to identify when you're hiring. And again, you've got to look at what do you need for your company. And even when you're training your people, you've got to train them to do these things. But these are the traits. And again, I coach a lot of the really high big billers, and these are the common denominators I see over and over again. Number 1, they're a hunter. They have the capability to consistently prospect. They never want to be satisfied with their client base or the candidates are always prospecting. Number two, they know how to reach decision makers. They anticipate and handle obstacles, and they sell to decision makers. They don't count a call when they talk to a receptionist. Number three, they know how to build relationships, and they build relationships based on trust and rapport. I don't believe that you should teach your people candidate or client control. Anytime I hear a trainer say, well, my people don't have client control or candidate control, I cringe, because you can't control another person. But what you want your people to do is develop relationships based on trust and rapport. And this profession always will be a relationship building profession. I don't care how high tech we get. You know, what happened is when I first went into this business in the dark ages, we were very high touch. You know, there were no computers. I hate to admit that. Yes, I'm a dinosaur. But anyway, and we used index cards and that, but it was all relationships. We used to mail resumes to people in like by the post office. When I got a fax machine, I thought I died and went to heaven. Well, now, you know, it's immediate. It's immediate. But what happened is we went from that relationship building profession to being so high tech that we've lost a lot of the relationships. And if you're only an email to somebody or only a text, they can delete you in seconds. The people that really become the high achievers in our profession are relationship builders. And so ask people about what relationships have you formed. What do you personally know about the clients you're doing business with? Because in our profession, you start out as a vendor, but then you become a trusted advisor, a consultant, and you should be friends with all your clients. So you've got to identify those people that realize that's their job, is to be a vendor for a very short period of time and build a relationship. And you can't do that if they only want to, you know, talk by text. And if anybody that works for you says nobody will answer the phone, then just say back to them, well, it's because they don't see the benefit in talking to you. Change what you're saying. Number four, they're very consultative when they sell. They uncover challenges and they uncover the reasons to buy before they sell. You know, we pitch too soon. We sell too quickly because we're trying to fill business. And as a result, the clients feel like they're only a commission check to us. And the candidates feel we don't care about them at all, that all we're trying to do is fill jobs. And we've got to change that. So you've got to have more of a consulting selling style and hire people that have that. High achievers see the value versus the price. Because, you know, if you hire somebody and the only way they think they're going to land business is to lower your margins or lower your fees, not good for you. You know, and what they've got to realize is people never complain about the price or the margins or the fees if they feel you're really giving them a return on their investment. You can't give me a B candidate and charge me an A margin. If I'm going to pay, you know, if I'm going to pay a solid bill rate, and we've got to quit discussing markup. You've got to hire people that are going to quote, what is your bill rate? And I'll get you the best person within that bill rate. You've got to teach them a little bit differently now, but they've got to see the return on investment so that they don't get hung up on price objectives. They've got to be able to qualify prospective clients and candidates. You know, qualify the business written and the candidates recruited. We only place 5% of the people we attract. Isn't that awful? That's worldwide. That's been studied over and over again that, you know, your company attracts a lot of candidates, but most of them are not who you're going to place in a job. And yet most of your recruiters are spending 90 minutes a day taking availability calls and update calls from the 95% that you're never going to make money on. So you want to find out in a person, especially if they have sales experience, how do they qualify the prospects? You need someone who's tech savvy. And if people don't use your ATS, every one of your ATS systems provides training. And I would be willing to bet that most of the people that work for you only use 10% of the capability of your ATS system. They never really learned it properly. And what you want as an owner manager, you want everybody to use the same exact fields. Like if I'm interviewing a candidate, what fields do I need to fill out in the ATS? So if somebody else follows after me, they know where to look for things. You know, if you haven't done training on your ATS in a long time, do it for your new hires, but do it for your experienced people because they're wasting a ton of time. They're not using these systems. And by the way, nobody likes their ATS. I've never met a recruiter or an account executive that says, I love my ATS, because we're salespeople. We don't like detail, but they've got to use technology and they have to have a strong social media presence. Their LinkedIn profile, before you hire them, look at their LinkedIn profile. Is it just a resume or is it a mini sales letter? Do they know how to sell themselves on their LinkedIn profile? What groups do they back? Tells you a lot about a person. You've got to teach them to follow a repeatable sales process. They have to be willing to follow systems and review their results to adjust and improve. So you want to ask them, where have you ever sold something? What systems did you use? You don't want to hire people that just shoot from the hip, that always go after that shiny diamond that they see. Number 10, they have to be able to control emotions. The last thing, our candidates and our clients are emotional. We can't hire emotional people. You've got to hire people who are going to choose how they will react, or even if they will react. Number 11, they've got to be comfortable discussing money. So often our salespeople do a great job. Then when it comes to discussing the bill rate, all of a sudden they're whispering or they're backpedaling. They've got to discuss money, and they've got to effectively overcome price objectives. Hire people that believe in planning and prioritizing, because even your current team, if you want your current team to be more successful, make them write down the 6 things closest to the money every night before they leave work, and at least 10 outgoing calls. Too many people show up and they try to decide what they're going to work on. So basically they waste an hour a day, and you can't afford that. There's too much business to fill. Number 13, they handle rejection and they recover from it. They realize when we're rejected, it's not personal. They're success driven. They've got great goals. They've got great aspirations, and they're committed to achieve a high level of success. They're willing to do whatever it takes to become a top producer. They're also responsible and accountable. They're not the kind of person that points the finger. If you're interviewing somebody and they're saying, well, but our company was in a bad location, and if they're pointing the finger at other people or other things, why they didn't achieve great success, there were 3 fingers pointing back at them. What did they do different? And again, focused, find people. And if your team is not doing this, as a tip from me to you, have your people list the 6 things closest to the money every night before they leave work that they commit to completing the next day. And sometimes when you watch what they write down, you're like, oh my God, that's not close to the money. It really helps you as an owner or manager. And you've got to create a structured interviewing process. You've got to ask everybody you interview the exact same questions, because this will prevent you from making an emotional choice. You don't want to hire the person you like most. You want to hire your next top producer. And we're no different than anybody else. If we don't have a structured, interview process, we're going to hire who we like. Now, how do you differentiate? There's so many ways that you can differentiate, but why should I work for you versus your competition? Your answer will identify how you differentiate. I'm going to give you some tips here. Maybe you've got flexible working hours. Maybe you let them work virtual. Maybe you've got an established client base. You've got a great network of established candidates. You've got a track record of success. You've got unusual benefits or perks. You've got mentorship programs. You've got the most internal employees were referred by your current team. So if your team, and I have to say that to you, if most of your employees are not coming from your current team members, you got to ask yourself why. Because if someone really likes working for you, they should be recruiting others for you. Because if your team isn't recruiting other people to your company, they're probably being recruited away by your competitors. Think about that for a second. Your internal employee referral program has to be great. Again, a comprehensive training program, the ability to continually learn and grow. It's really interesting that when the millennials and Gen Z are now over 50% of the workforce, by 2025, which is 3 years away, 70% of the workforce, 70% of the workforce are going to be millennials and Gen Z. And they're all about, where is this job going to lead? And what are you going to teach me? They want that personal development. They want to learn, consistently. And this leads me to my last topic. And any of you that know me know that I am a firm believer in TechServe certification program, just a firm believer. And I do believe that certification can help your training. It can help engagement of your current team and retention, because many of the hiring managers and candidates you represent are certified. It just makes sense that your internal team members should earn their certification, which is the highest professional designation you can earn in IT and engineering staffing. What's really nice about this too is this certification is not 100% law. Any other certification program out there in our profession is just law. This is 80% practical application. What should you do to become more successful on your job? Best practices. When you're attempting to attract somebody to your company and you share that you will invest in their future by helping them earn their professional certification, that is a differentiator. Again, TechServe Alliance is the only program that covers best practices. Nobody else does that. They were afraid to do it. Most of the program teaches best practices that will enhance your current training program. And if you don't have a training program, then this should be a no-brainer for you. You could offer a certification as a hiring incentive, or if you have a comprehensive internal training program, you may decide to offer certification after 6 or 12 months of employment. That will help you enhance engagement and retention. Certification is a great tool to retain your tenured team, who will be reminded of best practices they're no longer using, and they will get new ideas. I've never heard of anybody that has taken certification that has said, gee, I knew everything that was in it. No, they don't. No, they don't. For sure they don't. And TechServe is constantly upgrading and making things current and offering things to the people that are certified. In this competitive marketplace where everyone wants to hire the best person to work in their office, offering certification could just be one perk that attracts them to your firm. And again, I am not objective about certification. This is the second certification program I've been involved in my profession. I can tell you this one is phenomenal. This is a much better program because it is best practices. But again, you're constantly recruiting people with certification. Imagine if you went out there and said, our team also earned their professional, the highest professional designation the recruiters can earn in our profession. Our team did that, and the training was 100% best practices because we want to better serve you. If you sign your team up, you want to let your clients know, let your candidates know, our team is 100% certified, or we are now backing a certification program because we want to learn best practices. We're always doing things to better serve you. You know, those of you that attend the TechServe conference, that owner summit this last fall in Florida was phenomenal. TechServe has never done anything like that, where it was strictly owners and higher level people from firms, but it was the most phenomenal conference I think I've ever been to. And all the owners there were saying the exact same thing. You know, so if you don't have their event in Palm Springs on your calendar, definitely do that. Definitely do that. Put that on your calendar. But also, if you don't have your people certified, this is something that I think you should do. Now, what I'd like to do, we're going to go into questions, but Sydney's going to take a poll right now. I would love to know how many of you actually have certified have either you're certified, your team members are certified. There's your poll right there. Can you just fill that out? Yes or no? Are your team members certified? Because I'd like to get, a feeling for how many of you actually are certified, or how many of you, are just not. And maybe you haven't seen the value in it. I also want to open the lines for your questions. Now, your questions can be about certification. It can be about anything that I've discussed on how you find your internal team members. And also, I do have 20 questions that I ask of every person that I interview from my organization. If you want a copy of the 20 questions, because you work for because you're a member of TechServe, if you want my 20 questions, send an email to support@staffingandrecruiting.com, and I'll give you my 20 questions. So I'll share the questions I ask. You might want to add to it, delete from it. But if you don't have a structured interview you're doing for your internal team, ask my questions, because at least I'll give you my questions, and then I give you the reason why you're asking those questions. It'll show you what you're looking for. So the question appears like you want something, but I'm really looking for something else. So again, if you send me your request to support@staffingandrecruiting.com, I'll give you my 20 questions that I ask to kind of help you in the interviewing process. Okay, Sydney, I'm going to turn it over to you. Do we have any questions?
First question is, do you recommend utilizing a sales assessment as part of the hiring process?
What sales assessment? What sales assessment are they talking about?
Whoever submitted that, could you please elaborate?
Yeah, like what sales assessment are you using, like a regular assessment tool like DISC? If you're using DISC, which I've used for years, I look for people with a high I, they're going to be influencers. So if I'm hiring in my organization, I do use a DISC assessment tool. In fact, I became a certified partner with DISC because I think all of my big billers, every one of my big billers is a high I, because the D is dominant, the I is, influential, and we want to hire people that are influenced. So any tool that you use that helps you determine, but what you have to do is you have to get that tool distributed with everybody that currently works for you, and then look at, okay, how are they grading on this? And then what am I looking for? So if you're going to use it as part of your hiring process, you're going to make sure that you're hiring the profile that does depict your big billers. Or if you're not looking for a big biller right now, you want that steady person, that's going to make you a lot of money, but they're not going to be because, high achievers can be a little high maintenance sometimes too. Got to decide what you want. But I believe in assessment tools because I just think it's one more way to make sure that we're doing a great hire. Next question.
What do you think about people who sell at cell phone stores like AT&T, Verizon, etc.?
They often are more, they're waiting to be fed. Like we can't hire goldfish. I want you to think of the difference between a goldfish and a shark. Okay. A goldfish sits in a bowl and waits to be fed. And if somebody doesn't feed them, they die. A lot of recruiters are that way. They want to put job board ads. They want to do all this and have they control their success by their incoming calls versus their outgoing calls, where a shark goes out there and tracks down what they want to eat, tracks down where they want to go, and eventually they'll eat the goldfish. And so too often when people are in retail sales, unless they're the type of person that is following up on leads, like find out who's the top person in the store, who's the best salesperson and why. But if they're just sitting there and people are walking through the door, you've walked in those stores where they've been very busy. You've walked in those stores where they're not busy and everybody's on their cell phone playing games. Well, if you've got a person that you find that is working at one of those stores, but when you ask them, well, what do you do to get people in the door? And if they say, well, we advertise and we run specials, that's how they come in the door. If they say, well, no, if somebody comes in and they didn't buy, I'm going to follow up, or I'm going to go out there and put the word out there that this is where I'm at. So look for someone who's not a goldfish. Just don't hire a goldfish, because you don't want people that are going to sit there and wait for you to feed them. You've got people that are proactive, that go out there and just make things happen. But there are some great people, that work in those stores. You just got to pick and choose. Go in there, pretend you're buying a phone, and who is making the best presentation? Who's closing the sales? Who really has the good communication skills? I mean, you get to watch them by just walking around the store.
Next question is, what percentage of each placement should you offer a new hire?
Okay, this is not an owner call. We've got mostly owners and some managers, but we have some account executives on the phone. We have some recruiters on the phone, and I don't want to discuss compensation because it's not a pure owner call, and it's called price fixing. And so as a trainer, when someone asks me a question like that, I have to say I can't answer it because it's price fixing. And it's very different. The percentage is very different if you're doing contract staffing or if you're doing direct hire, because contract staffing usually has a little bit higher base salary than a much lower percentage is offered, and usually the percentage goes down as the contractor is out there 2, 3, 4 years. Where direct hire, the salary is usually much lower, but the commission is higher. And the commission is split between, like, the person writing the job gets their commission on 50% of the fee, and the person that had the candidate gets their percent on 50% of the fee. But it's not something that I can discuss at a general call like this to protect all of you and myself. I can't be price fixing out there.
Next question is, do you ask your team to send you their 6 things each night, or they just write them down to themselves?
They have their 6 things closest to the money. They're actually entering it in a certain section in our ATS that their managers can access. My managers access the 6 things close to the money every single evening because my team has to write them down before they leave. And like a lot of them are working virtual now, but before they end their day, we want to see the 6 things closest to the money, because that helps their managers say, hey, what you're working on tomorrow, you might want to switch gears. We just filled it. Or this isn't really close to me. Why don't you try this? They can so they take notes where the section where we have them write it in our ATS, my managers, and I can see them. I don't do it anymore. My managers do, but they go in there and they take notes. If they like what they did, they didn't take notes. If they didn't do the 6 things closest to the money, they send them a text at home and say, you forgot to put your 6 things close to the money in the ATS because we want them to do it from home that night. If you don't check it, they're never going to do it. If you just say do it and you don't, people do what you inspect, not what you expect, until it becomes a habit. I've done this for almost 20 years now. And I write down the 6 things closest to the money in my life. I do it 7 days a week because my weekends are really busy because I'm in a studio now filming some training, and my personal life has really suffered because I'm working 7 days a week. And so I write down what I'm going to accomplish in my personal life over the weekend because I want to make room for my personal life. And so it forces me to do that. So I do it 7 days a week. But once you do this, you'll never stop doing it because you're going to get more done. Even if you're taken away, you realize, okay, I got to get those things done because if I do nothing else today but those 6 things, this is a great day. but you and I know you can get calls and interruptions, and then the important stuff doesn't get done. So this helps you, to get back to that important stuff.
And our last question, oh, there's more popping in. The next question is about the pricing for the certification courses. So we actually offer two different packages. The first includes the certification program study materials and the exam administration fee, which is $250 for members and $695 for those individuals who are not affiliated with a TechServe Alliance member firm. And then the second package we offer is the program study materials, the exam fee, and exam training webinars. For members, it is $350. And for non-members, it is an additional $200 on top of the $695 for a total of $895.
So it makes sense to join TechServe if you want to get your people certified.
And then last question is, what are your ramp up GP growth placements and KPI expectations for new recruiters over a specific time period, both IT, contracting, and perm?
Yeah, see, that's really hard to say because unless I knew the internal workings of your firm, I do set very specific KPIs, and it depends on what job I'm hiring people for. But I look at what I would tell you to do if you don't have them set, look at the averages in your organization. What are your people doing? What are the average KPIs that you're requiring of your tenured staff, and reduce them by 75% for the first month, and then reduce them by 50% for the next 3 months, and then start wrapping them up to get up where your people are. But look at what your current team is able to produce. And then you've got to really dramatically reduce that because, they're learning, they're going through your training, and it also depends on the KPIs are very different. If you're an established firm that is giving people, leads, and you've got an established database, or they're working on hot orders the minute they come in, or if they're starting from scratch in a blank slate, then the wrap-up time is going to be much higher. And it's when you hire somebody in sales, their KPIs, that's relationship building. They're not going to be cranking out numbers, immediately. They're not going to be writing new contracts their first or second day of employment. It's not that instant gratification. It's relationship building to develop clients. On the other side, recruiting can be instant gratification. They can call somebody, send them on a job, and they get hired, within their first couple of days of employment. So, it's too tough to answer. Like, I'd have to know much more about your organization and what you have them doing in your structure to be able to help you with those. But, a rule of thumb is just look at your current team. What are they averaging? Reduce it. Just have your new hires do 25% of your average when they first start with you. And that's after your training program.
And do we have any other questions? I'll give people just another moment to type anything.
And I'm sorry for the long answers. And the other thing I want to say to all of you is, if your people don't have their 10 negotiable, everybody that works for you should tell you what they want to earn this year. You should know that so that you can help them get there. Secondly, they should have 10 non-negotiable goals in all areas of their life posted where they work. And I believe in this. And under each goal, regardless of what it is in your life, there should be 5 dated action items. Like, this is my goal. These are the 5 steps I'm going to take to achieve the goal. And they're dated. If they don't do this, they're never going to achieve what they can achieve this year. And let me see if I can do this real quick. This is really kind of crazy. But if you can see, I don't know if you can see that whole big list up there, that's my list. Anything I tell you to do, I do. And I've had my 10 goals up there since Thanksgiving. In fact, I've already crossed off 1, 2, 3, 5. I've already crossed off 7 steps. Okay, these are the steps to my goals. Because if your people don't know where they're going, they're not going to get there. If you want to run contests, then let them achieve something that's on their goals. But 10 non-negotiable goals in all areas of their life that are important to them, followed by 5 steps that are dated. If they can't attain a goal by doing 5 steps, you got to break the goal into 2 goals. But what I want to leave all of you with is, make sure your current team has this. Make sure they know what they want to earn. Because if they don't know where they're going, they're not going to get there. And neither are you. They're not going to have a record year because you told them they're going to have a record year. They'll have a record year trying to achieve one of those 10 things. Saving money for college, buying a new car, taking a trip, attending the TechServe conference in fall. I mean, whatever it is, if you haven't had your people do that, if you just have them write down goals, they're not going to happen. They're in their bottom drawer. and they didn't break them down into steps that are dated. So they're not going to do them. They're going to take them out next year and they're going to change 2022 to 2023 and give them back to you. So I would strongly suggest everybody on this call, when you get off, have your people write down 6 things closest to the money. And I'm not supposed to be doing training for your team. I can't help myself. And then have them write down 10 goals with 5 dated action items, and it'll make a big difference. And then, by the way, everybody, do not erase the goal this year. Whatever they said they're going to do in January, if they didn't do it, take the difference between what they're going to do this month and what they said they were going to do. Take the difference, divide it by 11, and add it to the rest of the year. If you erase a goal, you're telling your team in January that you're not going to hold them accountable. So please don't erase a goal this year, and get involved in TechServe. Please read TechServe's information. One of your differentiators is you belong to TechServe. And I can't strongly recommend enough that you sign your people up for certification. It's a great investment and you'll get a return on that investment. So I'm done talking, Sydney, I think.
Yes, well, thank you so much for being here with us today, Barb, and thank you everyone for joining. We ask that you please fill out the survey upon exiting this webinar. Our next scheduled webinar will be Current Industry Compensation Trends on Thursday, January 27th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. If you are interested in learning more about our certification program, or if you have any questions from today's session, please send them to staff@techservealliance.org. Thanks and have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everybody.